All right, once again, a very good evening to all the ArchiNet family. It's a wonderful pleasure to be with you all again on the Sunday evening. It gives me great pleasure to host you on this presentation on the fundamentals of curtain wall facades. Just to give you a brief about myself, so my name is Arvind Kumar. I head the pre-construction services for Hydro Building Systems Middle East for our territories here in the region, which includes the GCC, Egypt, Eastern Africa, and India as well. Along with me, my colleague is also available, Khalid Hanidi. He is the pre-sales manager, and he specifically looks after the Saudi Arabian market as well. So today what we have in store for you, I just want to go through again what the Facade Design and Engineering Week is all about. For those of you who did not join yesterday, I would again give you a quick brief about what Technal is and what we do here in this part of the world. And then we go straight into our topic, which is fundamentals of curtain wall facade. And then at the end of the session, we will have a small little Q&A just to see how well we have grabbed the information we have shared today. All right, so without further ado, let's start with talking about the Facade Design Week in itself. So when ourselves and ArchiNet were discussing about different topics which we should cover for the facade related content, we gave them a list of topics which we thought are very necessary and important, because facade is such an underrated trade and many people oversee the importance of facade. And ArchiNet was so gracious enough to say, okay, I think these topics deserve a whole week, and then they dedicated this space for this whole week to organize the Architectural Facade Design and Engineering Week. So kudos to ArchiNet, and thank you all also for registering and joining our sessions. So yesterday we talked about the very, very basic parameters for choosing windows, doors, and facades. And today we will go a little bit to the basics of what a curtain wall facade is, what are the different types of curtain wall facade. Tomorrow is going to be a very interesting session. My colleague Khalid is going to talk about the new upcoming trends in windows, doors, and facades. And this is actually going to blow your mind away. This presentation will be in Arabic. So feel free to join in and come in with your questions and get prepared to be wowed. On Tuesday, we will talk about a very important topic, which is fire and life safety solutions from a facade perspective. This is going to be also a very important session, given the fact that we have a lot of recent incidents which push us to think and rethink how we design facades from a fire and life safety perspective. On Wednesday, we're going to talk a little bit about digital solutions. So if you are a BIM freak, or if you're working a lot on BIM for your projects, and if you want to know a little bit more about what are the tools which are available today for BIM, please join us on Wednesday. That's going to be a very nice session on BIM tools for windows, doors, and facade. And the grand finale on Thursday would be the future of facades. We're going to talk about sustainability, energy efficiency, and how facades contribute to the new normal, which is what we call as a circular economy. So with that said, I'm going to start today's presentation session. At the end of the session, we will definitely open up the Q&A, which is during a poll. And after the Q&A poll session, we can open up the floor also for questions. So please feel free to put in your questions on the chat box, and Badr and I would love to answer the questions which you have in store for us. And at the penultimate stage, there will be a survey link which will be flashed. Please do fill in the survey so that we can send you a certificate of attendance for today's session. Right, so who is Technal? We belong to the Hydro Group, which is the world's largest single source aluminum company. We have over 114 years of experience in the business of aluminum, and we are a net employee of 35,000 in more than 150 locations. So what does it mean by single source? We have our own bauxite mine. We produce our own alumina. We also produce our own hydroelectric power, and that's why our name Hydro. And hydroelectric power is one of the most cleanest form of energy which is available today. And we use this energy to convert alumina to primary metal and to rolled products. And then we also have further downstream extrusions, and subsequently we also do the recycling of aluminum. So where do you see Hydro products? You would see in the automotive business. We work with brands like Tesla, Jaguar, where we make aluminum framing systems, chassis for the car bodies. In building and construction, you see it, of course, on buildings, windows, doors, and facade. We're going to talk more about that today. You see our products in packaging, in electronics, electrical, machinery, equipment, and consumer durables. So you see Hydro products almost in every touch and feel of your life. So we belong to the extrusion business as Technal, and under the extrusion business, we have, of course, the standard extrusion portfolio. We also have the precision tubing portfolio, which caters to the industrial products. And then we have the building systems. This is where Technal comes under. So again, in the building systems portfolio, we have 4 brands. We have Vicona, which is a 70-year-old brand from Germany. We have Technal, which is a French brand, which has over 60 years of experience. We have Domal, which is an Italian brand, and we have Sapa, which is a Scandinavian brand. So all put together, we have a wide range of products catering to any particular need which the architect or designer requires for his or her project. As Technal, the brand is very popular in the Middle East because we've been here for over 40 years. And Technal is a brand hailing from France. In fact, our headquarters is from the south of France, which is Toulouse, which is also known for the brand Airbus. So all the Airbus flights are manufactured in Toulouse, in the very same city of Technal. We are present in more than 70 countries in 5 continents, and we have over 60 years of global experience, and we have 40 years of experience in the Middle East. And architects really enjoy working with us because we are very open and flexible in terms of design, in terms of identifying the right products for their design intent. So how do you remember Technal? Remember the current football reigning champions are France. That's one way to remember Technal. Whenever you're on the flight, next time on an Airbus flight, I hope it is very soon, and I'm really looking forward to travel on flights again. So whenever you travel on an Airbus flight, you will always remember Technal. And of course, when you ever take your loved ones to Eiffel Tower, you can always remember the Technal brand as well. So these are some good key points for you to remember Technal. So what do? We manufacture aluminum systems for sliding doors, windows, facades, and we also make products for fire-rated windows, doors, and curtain walling. We also produce bullet and burglar-proof sliders, windows, and doors. We manufacture handrails and also pergolas and conservatories. And you will hear about all these products in the coming weeks in various formats as we touch upon different topics during the Façade week. What is so unique about Technal? All of our products are tried and tested for 3 years before it comes to the market. We do a lot of prototyping. We do several tests to ensure that the product which reaches you are fully tried and tested. And all of this happens at our Innovation and Test Center in Toulouse. And this is also a wonderful center for architects and designers to do R&D as well, because this lab is fitted with not only the standard air, water, structural test facilities, but also we have our own in-house acoustic laboratory. We have R&D center for joinery, and we have our own in-house research and development center for net zero buildings. So if you are working on a project, and if you're working on a research project and you want to use our help and assistance on the R&D center, we are more than happy to help you. Please feel free to reach out to us for the same. So in a nutshell, Technal in the Middle East has been here for 40 years. We've been serving more than 10 countries through our 150 authorized installer partners. We have done over 2,500 projects, and we have a team of 95 members, and we have warehouse spanning in 3 regions for 60,000 square feet. Here are some nice little photos of our headquarters, which is in Bahrain. We have some photos of our warehouses. This is where we store our products to quickly service any kind of project requirements in the region. And we also show some photos of our showroom. If you ever pass by Bahrain or Dubai, we have a wonderful showroom equipped with all our products in life size, and you're welcome to come and pass by and see them. Please let us know. It'll be an an honor to host and welcome you in our showrooms as well. And at the last picture, my lovely team in Dubai, and we are very passionate about what we do in Technal, and we would always look forward to welcome you whenever you pass by in any of our offices across the region. So apart from selling profiles and accessories, what else do we do? We host a whole lot of trainings. That's one of them is what we're doing today with ArchiNet. We do a lot of tests and project service. That's something which we'll talk about in the coming slide. We have our own portfolio of software, and that's one of the sessions we have in store in the coming days. And we are always testing and certifying our products for the ever-changing regulations and requirements within the region and internationally. So in terms of a project service, if you are an architect or a designer, we try to work with you right from the concept and schematic stage, where you are still kind of identifying your design thought process for the project, and you just want to know what kind of sizes are available, what kind of facade options are available out there in the market, which are feasible sizes, and so on, locally available solutions. So at this stage, we do a lot of consulting for you, for you architects on this front. And as the project progresses on to the detailed design stage, we are producing detailed drawings. We are coordinating the facade package with you in terms of identifying the right interfaces, helping you with samples to kind of really have a touch and feel of all the products which you're eventually going to use, assisting you in BIM. And many of you architects are now working on BIM, and this is an area which we are supporting you and working with you. And of course, helping you with the cost estimates, because at this DD stage, you want to make sure whatever you're prescribing fits into the budget of the overall project. And as we move to the tender stage, this is an area where you want obviously more assistance from our metal builder partners, and we list them out and we send them to you so that they can give you attractive prices without compromising on the specification and the design intent. And also this is a good opportunity to think about value engineering. If you want to really look at some trimming on the facade package, with the help of Technal and our metal builder partners, we'll be able to offer you all these kind of value engineering strategies and ideas at absolutely no cost. And once it comes to construction, we don't leave you. Here is where your resident engineers need a lot of support, and we ensure and we insist that all the architects demand for Technal to sign and approve the shop drawings so that the installer, whomsoever it may be, follows and really obliges the design intent of the architect. And we also do site visits to ensure that the fabrication quality is at its best. So we literally are involving with you right from the concept stage, right till the construction and delivery stage. And once the project is commissioned, we are more than happy to continue to support you for your existing and ongoing projects. So in terms of projects, what we have done, we do all kinds of projects as Technal. We do education, residential, tourism, health and well-being, offices, retail, private residential. So from a small villa to a super high-rise building, you can count us in, because we have the team and the workforce and the logistics supply chain to back it up to help you and assist you in any kind of project format. Some of the examples, and these are my favorite projects from Saudi Arabia. This is the King's Road Tower. It's a 170-meter tall building, one of the first buildings which ever used unitized curtain wall facade, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And this project also has a very unique feature that this is hosting one of the world's largest LED screen on the facade. So that's something very unique and nice about this project. Also the Burj Ramla, which is a uber luxury residential apartment in the heart of Riyadh. It's also just getting about to commission, and people will start to move in slowly. This is a very interesting mall in Jeddah. This is the Stars Avenue Mall, which today hosts one of the most interesting curved LED screens as well. And this is something which you cannot miss as you enter Jeddah. This is also a very interesting high performance facade project which we have done at the King Abdullah Specialized Children's Hospital along the way towards the coast area. And we've also done the Riyadh metro stations using a very interesting skylight product, which we will also see today. Also, a lot of history associated with Technal. We've the first ever curtain wall, one of the first ever curtain walling projects in Jeddah in '83 was a Bridgestone office, which was also done by Technal. And this building still is a landmark building in Jeddah, and many people have hailed praises at it because still it stands perfectly fine without any issues at all. And of course, my favorite, the Jabal Al Omar residential complex at the holy city of Mecca also adorns the Technal facade. In Dubai, a lot of skyscrapers, we will see some of the products which went into such high-rise towers like the Adra Skyview, the Burj Vista, the Dubai Design District, which hosts all the top architects in UAE. And these are some of the examples which we have done in terms of project references. Right, so that's a quick run through of who Technal is and what we do in the region. And now this gives me the perfect opportunity to kind of segue into the main topic, why we've all assembled here for. Right, so the main outcomes which I've kind of jotted down today is by end of the session, I want to justify the relevance of the facade skin, to give you an overview of the various kind of curtain walling systems and understand the different curtain wall types which are available, understand the fundamentals, like what are the major things which we look for, like drainage, fixation arrangements, and so on. And I want to take you through also skylight, because skylights are quite an important format of curtain wall facade, and that's something which we will walk through today as well. So what is so important about the facade skin? And I like to bring an analogy between the human body and the building itself. So your superstructure or your civil structure of the building could be easily compared to the skeleton of the human body. That's really fundamentally the backbone of the entire structure. Your MEP system in the building can be compared to the nervous system of your body. And like the human body, which is having a heat balanced body, your building also has various cold and hot and heat zones. So it is well distributed. So really your skin of the human body is compared to the facade of the building. And this skin plays such an important role because it acts as a fantastic barrier between the external environment and this internal configurations which you have, like the structure and the MEP and this heat balance which you are seeing inside the building. So the facade, the human skin and the facade skin are quite literally comparable in that aspect. So the facade skin also has some kind of regional influences. For example, in the local context, you have the skin to reflect the tradition and the culture of the local region. And then if you go to Western markets, you have more sort of curvilinear facades, which represent the international perspective in terms of the building skin. And thanks to urbanization and the possibility and the mobility of people moving across countries, today we see a wonderful cross-cultural amalgamation of this Western and local cultures, and we're able to imbibe this both together to give a new form factor for your facades. And that's really the beauty of how you can play with the skin today. And that's fundamentally a very important factor which cements our reason to know more about curtain walling, because these are literally not only representing the local culture, but also talks about the international and the local amalgamation of thought process. So what are the key objectives of the facade skin? And we talked about this yesterday as well, and that doesn't change today. The most important aspect of the facade skin is to reduce the negative external factors. So it needs to keep away the heat, especially in our region. In very urban-centric areas, you need to keep the noise away. Damps, dust storm, rain, the cold and the sun. These are aspects which we need to look forward to negate. But also the facade needs to maximize the use of the positive factors, such as the light, the natural light to come inside is quite important for the well-being of the residents inside. To let ventilation, especially in today's COVID era, natural ventilation plays such an important role. It needs to clean all the bad air inside, which is being constantly flooded with air conditioning and so on. And also positively use the sun. We have a lot of sun in this area, and that also gives us a great opportunity to maximize the use of the sun. And of course, we need to create a striking first impression, because the facade is the first thing which you see on a building. So when you enter and when you see the building, the facade is the first and foremost thing you see. So they always say the first impression is the best impression. So your facade needs to talk that same language. So these are reasons why I feel knowing about facade, knowing about curtain wall systems is significantly important for us as architects and designers and building stakeholders. Right. So what are the types of curtain wall systems? So we have three types of curtain wall systems. We have the stick curtain wall systems, we have the unitized curtain wall system, and we have the skylight systems. So the stick curtain wall system, traditionally you have different typologies. You have the standard and the most common is the stick curtain wall with the cover cap. And then what we have is popularly known here in the region as a toggle system, which is basically semi-structurally glazed system. And then we have the opportunity to play with both of these. So you have the horizontal or vertical with cap, and the rest can be structurally glazed. We have a nice format of stick curtain wall system called Glaze Frames, which I'll show you later today. And then we have also the structurally glazed system, which popularly known as a semi-unitized system, and we'll talk about that as well. In the unitized curtain wall system, we have the male-female or the American or Australian system. We have the female-female European system, and we have the hybrid. We have a mix of male-female and female-female, which also we will see today. So in essence, the major difference between a stick and a unitized system is the format of how we do the installation. The stick system are basically elements which are delivered separately to the building sites. Your transom mullion grid, and I'm going to talk in detail about what a transom is and what a mullion is. These grids are first installed, and then the glass panels, the windows and doors are brought in as individual units and installed at site. But the unitized system, as the name suggests, these are units or panels which are delivered ready-made glass units in the factory to the building site. Anchor elements are pre-installed or cast in the floor slabs. Units are installed one by one, and joints are sealed with special gasket systems. So essentially, you have all the panels fabricated in the factory, you bring to the site, and you start installing them. Now let's start with the stick curtain wall system. So the stick curtain wall system consists of vertical and horizontal elements. So the vertical elements are called mullions, and the horizontal elements are called transoms. Now the stick curtain wall system is a non-load bearing wall. It means that it can only support its own weight, and it transfers all the environmental forces back to the building. So don't assume that the curtain wall is a load bearing wall. It is not. These make for lightweight enclosures for building construction. I mean, back in the days, you cover your building with brick or mortar, but now you have these lightweight aluminum glaze enclosures for building construction. That's why people really like to use stick curtain wall systems. So let's start with the mullion. So the mullion is your main vertical continuous element. It is fixed to the building structure, and it bears all the wind load. So any wind load acting on the facade is directly transferred on to this vertical mullion. So we talked yesterday, and for people who were attending the session yesterday, we talked about wind pressures. And wind pressure, when it's attacking on a facade, the majority of the force is acting on the mullions. The transom, which is your horizontal component, is fixed to the mullions on both sides, and its duty is to bear the glass load. So transoms can be in different depths and different sizes based on what kind of glass we use, what are the widths of the glass, what are the height of the glass, what are the weight of the glass. All of these factors will help determine the kind of transom which we use on a particular facade. Thermal break, if you remember yesterday, we talked about U values, which is an important component of the SBC 2018. These are components which are installed in the mullion and transom nodes. They're made of this extremely low conductive material, polyamide, as we saw yesterday. And it simply prevents the cold bridging from external and internal profiles, and also heat bridging from external to internal profiles. We talked about this yesterday, why the importance of having thermally broken profile is to ensure that you get good thermal performance on your facade, and you're able to secure low thermal transmittance values, which are required for better energy efficiency. The lower the thermal transmittance, better is your usage of air conditioning inside your building. The pressure plate is essentially the continuous vertical and horizontal profile, which is fixed onto your mullion and transom by screws. It holds really the glass and the spandrel panels and the windows in position. So this is really holding everything in place. And then you have the decorative cover cap, which is essentially doing two important roles. One is it is notched at certain areas to ensure drainage, which we will talk about later. But it is also one of the main decorative external element, and this can be changed. We have a lot of formats of cover caps, which I will show you later on in the presentation. Then we have the internal glazing gaskets. So these gaskets help to create the internal air and water seal. They make a soft separation between the glass and the aluminum, because obviously glass, you can't directly have it against an aluminum surface. It could break, could damage. And then we have the adaptation profiles, and these are specifically installed in mullion gasket grooves. They enable the installation of the mullion's internal glazing gasket, and their real role is to equalize if you have a single glass on one side and you have the double glass on the other side. By having an adaptation profile, you're able to maintain consistency on the glass. And then we have our external glazing gaskets, which is installed in the pressure plates gasket grooves, and they create the external air and water seal. So it exactly does the job of the internal glazing gasket, and also creates a soft separation between the glass and the pressure plate. So the choice of gasket and the choice of the thermal break is very important. So as Technal, we are offering the complete system, the gaskets, the pressure plate, the screws, the polyamide. All of this comes from a single source. So there's a lot of peace of mind for stakeholders that you are getting a fully verified component from one single supplier. And that's something which we're very proud of. And it's important also to maintain the integrity and the performance of the facade curtain wall system. So here's a simple example of the dimensions. So in this particular image, I have taken a plan image of a vertical mullion, and here I'm showing a depth of the mullion as 160. Now the depth varies from 52 up to 300. So remember, I talked about the wind pressure. So depending upon the wind pressure, this depth can change. Most of the architects traditionally assume 160 as the complete mullion depth, and that's what they usually accommodate on the facade. But it is very important to note that that's not a good assumption, because that will change depending upon the project location and the external weather conditions and the environmental conditions. So please speak to Technal to understand what would be the exact mullion depth, and this will vary from project to project. The width of the mullion varies. Usually what we have shown here is a 52 mm mullion, but we have from 38 mm up to 90 mm. I'll talk about the 38 mm later on, but we have up to 90 mm width, which is required when you have very high interstory movements. So to tackle any kind of rotational movements on the facade, we are using wider mullions to help tackle again structural requirements. The thickness of the adaptation profile, it varies. It's between 6.5 mm and sometimes it is more. The internal glazing gasket, it's about 5 mm. The thickness of the glass, what we've shown here, is a 41.52 mm glass. And this is because there's a bit of lamination on the external glass, probably because of acoustic requirements or structural requirements. And then we have the height of the external glazing gasket, which is about 4.5 mm. And the height of the mullion cap, it's about 18 mm. So when we chose a 160 mm profile, the actual depth is from the edge of the cover cap till the back of the mullion is about 226.12. So you have to factor in 226 mm and not 160 mm when it comes to the space between the external facade and the back of the mullion. And once again, this will change project to project depending upon the project requirements. This is subject to change. And when you have a continuous curtain wall, you also have to pay attention for fire stop so that there is enough space accommodated for any kind of vertical fire propagation from floor to floor. More about that in the coming sessions. Let's look at a simple transom details on a transom. Again, you will see the depth of the transom varies. What we've shown here is 160 mm, but it can change from 52 up to 300 is available. The width of the transom, again, what we've shown here is 52 mm, but again, we have smaller widths as well, from 38 up to 90 mm. Like the previous slide, we have similar criteria for the internal glazing gasket, for the external glazing gasket, and height of the transom cap. But notice the shape of the transom cap. This is something very unique in Technal. The reason why we've designed the transom cap this way is that if any kind of water or rain hits on this particular top of the transom cap, it very nicely makes the water to glide away from the external face. And notice the internal water, how the water is getting drained out. We'll talk about the field drainage in the coming slides. So keep an eye mark on this particular image for the next coming slides. So in the cover caps, you have several options. You are able to have the standard flat cap, but you have curved caps. You have caps with T. You have caps with also to host LED lights. I will show you some examples of how we host LED lights on the facade. And we have some special shapes, and you are free to design any kind of shape you want. So most of the common designs is already available as a catalog solution, but if you're insisting on a specific type of cap, please feel free to talk to us and we'll be happy to customize this for you. This is simply a decorative feature, so it's absolutely no problem to design the way you need it. All right, so let's dig into, we saw what a traditional curtain wall, stick curtain wall is. Now let's see what are the adaptations and form factors which are available on the stick curtain wall system. So the first and foremost, which is very popular here in the Middle East, is your toggle system. It is what we call as a semi-structural glazing system. So what happens here is basically you have the internal glass which is mechanically fixed to your mullion. We call this the toggle. And you have the external glass, which is this part. It is fixed by means of a silicone glue. So the outer gap between glass filled by gasket or silicone. So basically you have this zone which is completely silicone, or in our case, we have another option called the gasket solution, which I'll talk a little later. But traditionally, there is two forces which is holding the glass together. One is this mechanical clamp, which you see here, and the other is the structural silicone, which is really giving that water tightness or water barrier. So this is a photo of how a semi-structural glazing looks like. I've specifically chosen this image because I want to show you the dust which easily falls on a semi-structural glazing system because the silicone is exposed. And in our region, we have a lot of dust. And if a building is not cleaned and maintained properly, you start seeing these yellow lines, which is really not a pleasant sign for architects. And we have a solution for that. I want to talk to you in the coming slides. Of course, you have the opportunity to play with the design intent of your facade. You can have either horizontally capped or vertically capped, and this accentuates the construction quite easily with the standard off-the-shelf solution. You don't have to develop new dies for it. But again, both these solutions are to underline the horizontal and vertical lineup in your curtain wall construction. So here's a nice image of how the facade looks like when you have a horizontal capping and vertical structurally glazed, and vice versa. You can do the other way around as well with a vertical line and a horizontal structurally glazed, kind of a hybrid solution. Another trend which is coming back into fashion is the glaze frame. We call this VEC or V-encadre system, where you have a subframe which has got the glass pre-installed in the factory, and then you installing this on the site through the mullion and the transom. So if you notice the image which which is shown here, is a kind of aspect which you can get if you want to really significantly showcase and express your facade framing, and this is a great way to do it. So you have obviously more aluminum on this context, but again, it's quite interesting because it helps the architect to really have a distinct frame in each panel. So this is something which is coming back in trend, and if you ever need some kind of assistance in this, please let us know. All right, coming to a kind of system which is my personal favorite is the semi-unitized system. In the semi-unitized system, what happens is, you remember the unitized systems mean it's made in units in the factory. In this scenario as well, we have as what we call as glass panel, which is bonded in the factory. So you're doing all the glass bonding onto the substructure in the factory, and these mullions and transoms are installed at site. And then you bring these bonded glass frames onto the site, and then you're able to install it like a unitized system, but of course you have the mullion and transom already in place. So this is very interesting because the aspect which you get is really clean lines. You don't see any exposed silicon, so there's no chance for dust to settle down on these kind of facade, and it gives you a much more stronger appeal on the facade. So obviously this is a bit expensive because you have additional framing. So in order to have that clean facade, I think this is quite important and quite necessary. So what is really the ideal best stick curtain wall system for our region? So I've got these two images which talks distinctly about the most common issue which we have here is maintaining the facade. You have our region is extremely dusty, and especially during sandstorms it gets really messy. And if the building operator doesn't have a proper operator on board, a cleaning operator on board, you will start to see those yellow lines quickly appearing on your facade. So what is the best system for a region? Is it semi-structural glazing or structural glazing? So obviously with these two options, my recommendation would be structural glazing, right? But we as Technal have researched and we have developed a very unique system which I think fits extremely well, both from an aesthetic point of view and also from the cost point of view as well. So what we have developed is a toggle system, which is semi-structural system, but with gasket instead of silicone. So as you see here in this plan, you have the toggle which mechanically clamps the glass, but the external face is fitted with EPDM gasket. Now this can also be applied in a situation where there's a door as well or a window incorporated fully. So what does this mean? There is absolutely no silicone used on the external surface. So there is no visible silicone on the outside, which makes it much more easy to maintain and is very, very clean. And it does not attract dust like silicone surfaces. So from a stick curtain wall point of view, for our region, we believe and we always recommend this to architects to go for the Technal toggle system with gasket instead of structural sealant. And this is cost effective as well as very easy to maintain. So if you have an operator who's having a tough time finding good cleaners on the facade, I think this is a much more forgiving system, because you can just clean it with water and the dust will just fall away, because they don't attract dust as much as a silicone does. Okay, so let's look at the fixing arrangement. So for your semi-structural glazing or a toggle and the standard stick curtain wall system, first and foremost, you need formwork. The formwork gives you the access to first place your mullions and then your transoms, and then you bring in your mullions, and then you bring in your glass, and then you fit it at site. So this process repeats itself till you complete the entire facade. So obviously, as you see, this is a little bit time consuming, but if your buildings are low rise and mid rise, I think if time is not a constraint, then stick curtain wall is a good option to follow. What happens on a semi-unitized system is quite different. You still need the formwork because you're placing your mullions on the grids, but you're bringing your panels from the factory ready to be installed. So there is no site work on glazing or applying silicone. So the quality of work is much better and much faster compared to a standard stick curtain wall system. So this is very important to note on how the system is installed. So you have the stick curtain wall system and the semi-unitized curtain wall system having its own format of fixing. So depending upon your project needs, you can choose which option to go for. But remember again, both of them are time consuming because you have to position your formwork, position your external access before you start doing any kind of facade installation. So why do we involve Technal in these kind of projects? I mean, you have so many curtain wall available in the market from the commercial sections. What makes Technal very unique? So one of the most fundamental aspects when it comes to installing the facade is the fixing arrangement. And you need to have a lot of know-how to understand beyond just fixing a facade onto a slab. So what we have to understand is that in arrangements of these elements, there is always linear thermal expansions and slab deflections which happen. These need to be taken into account because today you have really interesting formats of flow slabs. You have wider flow plates compared to olden days, and you have a lot of slab deflections happening in your projects. So what happens is your connections are also expanding constantly during the day and during the night. And this is more evident when you have during the winters in our region, the expansions are much higher than normal times. So during this temperature deviation of 20 degrees, especially in winters in the Middle East, this is what happens from a morning to evening. The expansion is almost 0.5 mm for every linear meter. So what happens is if your facade is also clamped across the slab, you're also experiencing linear thermal expansions twice. So as a principle, every single element of mullion can only have one fixed anchor. If you have two fixed anchors on both sides, what happens is the profile tries to expand and contract, and this makes cracking noise. And I've heard many people complaining that they have sleepless night because of this noise which they hear in the night. And people think it's ghost, but it's not really ghost. It is actually your profile, expanding and contracting because of the linear thermal expansions. So this is where the fixing points from Technal are quite evident. We explain and ensure that a certain amount of loose anchoring is made to design this kind of expansion joint within your mullions. And this is significantly very important. In the fixing arrangement itself, we have two types of fixed arrangement, fixed anchoring. One of them, as we call as a standing arrangement, where you have the fixed anchoring at the bottom and you have the loose anchoring at the top. And another one where we call as a hanging curtain wall, where we have the fixed anchoring on the top and the loose anchoring at the bottom. So this is very important because and the project has different elements, external features, we have to be very particular about how the anchoring happens. And this is where Technal plays a very important role in advising and giving some kind of engineering judgment and advices on this kind of dilation and contraction which happens in the facade life or lifetime of these particular product. So we are looking at an image of a edge of slab, and this is where the mullions are installed. This is how we are fixing the anchor to the slab by the use of anchor bolts. And you have the possibility to adjust these anchor bolts depending upon how you're aligning your facade grid. And what we mean by fixed and loose anchoring is essentially this. And on a fixed anchoring, it's tight, it's held closely and neatly. but in the loose anchoring, we allow the mullion to expand and contract. So this kind of strategic advice is what Technal offers to architects to ensure that the end user, because the end user really is the important customer for us. We want to make sure that he has a good peaceful night, especially in winters. And this is one of the key examples of simple anchoring adjustments which we do to help in better usage of the facade. Another topic which is important is water drainage. And in water drainage, of course, yesterday somebody asked about having the difference of air tightness and water tightness, how they can compensate with each other. Is an airtight facade as good as a watertight facade? The answer is no, because as you see here, small amount of water may penetrate through these external glazing gaskets. So therefore, these chamber around this area must be drained effectively. So we are making specific holes. These are specifically advised and designed for our system to enable drainage of narrow space. So we need this this air vent to ensure what we call it as pressure equalization. And these ventilation holes are specifically made on the pressure plates and also on the cover cap of the transoms. So this is very important, because this is what helps in getting you the pressure equalization, and at the same time also keeps in mind not excessive amount of air infiltration. So there are two types of drainages which are traditionally followed. One is the mullion drainage, where we drain the water through the mullion. This is commonly followed in the stick curtain wall system. But in our region, what we do is we follow another format of drainage. So this slide explains that, every 6 elements or every 7 meters, the mullions have some kind of a channel, and these channels help to expel the water when there is enough water coming through from the transoms and reaching the mullions. So at every 7 meters, we have these specific gaps which let the water to drain through the mullion in the event of a rain or any kind of accumulated water due to cleaning and so on and so forth. But the most commonly followed kind of drainage here is field drainage, which is an alternate method of the mullion drainage. Here each field is drained separately. So you have your water is transferring from the mullion to the transom, and at every panel you have slots which are created at the transom, and the water is expelled through these slots. So every panel is considered as a field, and water is drained out till it reaches the floor. So this is a more common approach which we follow here in this part of the world, simply because the installers, it's much easy for the fabricators to do this way. Otherwise, in the mullion drainage, many of the times people forget to add this nozzle and all the water gets stuck and it doesn't ever drain. So the field drainage is more commonly and popularly followed in this part of the world. So as I mentioned, in the field drainage, the mullion drainage channel is locked at the transom joint level, and the water flows from the mullion to the upper face of the transom through the thermal break. And you see these are special slots which are created on the transom, and water flows out through these transoms through bottom notches. Now, to accommodate the specific notches, all of Technal's installers have specific punching tools. So just like McDonald's, how you have the burger tasting the same in London, in Riyadh, in India, it's only because they use common ingredients. And similarly, all the Technal facade metal builders or installers, they have to use our machines and equipment to get the perfect drilling holes, the perfect notches. So these kind of drainages can be efficiently fabricated. So, and finally, the water drains through the bottom. And if you remember the earlier slide where we had this transom image, we had this nice curved, nice sloped edge, and then there's a small extension. So we had the small extension just to cover this drainage slot. So it looks very neat, very elegant, and very French in terms of the design. So that's a quick wrap of stick curtain wall systems. Now this gives me an opportunity to talk about unitized systems, which is really an interesting topic. In the unitized system, we have two types. We have the European female-female system, and we have the American male-female system. In principle, the major difference between the male-female and European system is the male-female system has more opportunity to move. So when you have high-rise buildings and you have a lot of interstory movements, your male-female system is preferred. When you have a fairly mid-rise building where the movements are not so much, but your importance is thermal performance and acoustic performance, the European system is preferred because it gives you a lot of flexibility and very high acoustic and thermal performance thanks to its multi-gasket system. So you have multiple gasket, which means multiple layers of protection, which I'll show you in the coming slides. So in terms of high performance systems, comparing to the functional parameters we discussed yesterday, we always recommend the European system, which is much better in terms of overall performance. But we also have what we call as a hybrid system, which is a combination of male-female and female-female system. This is a project which we did in Doha, which is a completely interesting project because the floor plates are changing from 0 to 180 degrees to the top, and the whole facade kind of turns around this floor plan. So when it turns, obviously you have a lot of stress points, and this is something which we need to take into consideration. So when you have segmented facade, you're always expected to create more and more profiles to accommodate that curvature. But what we have done here is quite interesting. We have done what is called as cold bending, where we have taken the concept of the European system, which is female-female, and we've added an interbracing profile. And as the facade is constructed, we are actually bending the panel to take the shape of the facade. We call this cold bending, and it's fantastic and tremendous to know how flexible glass and aluminum is. So when you have a complex project like this, where you're talking about a parametric shape, please do talk to us, and we'd be happy to support you to find solutions for you using a cost-effective way, but also to find out a solution which maintains your design intent without adding more and more profiles. So this is a very interesting format of facade which we have done recently, and the project is now completely ready and already commissioned. So let's talk about the fixing arrangement of unitized curtain wall system. Unlike the stick curtain wall system, here we don't need any formwork. So you don't need any kind of site access equipment and so on. You literally have 3 people on one floor and 2 people on the other floor. You bring these panels completely fabricated from the factory, and you start installing them in panels. So it's absolutely incredible, because as you are casting your slab, you can start casting your anchor plates, and you have your brackets installed as your floor is getting progress. So every floor you are able to complete the facade installation as you grow floor by floor by floor. And this is really important when you have a tight project program and you want to complete your project in record time. Unitized facade is the way to go, irrespective of high rise or mid rise. Even if the building is a G+10, but you want to close the facade in record time, unitized facade is the way to go. And that's something which we always recommend to architects and stakeholders to think about. A small video to show how the unitized facade is installed, especially when you have a complex window unit and you have some kind of columns coming everywhere. We use robotics to help assist in kind of taking those panels outside and installing it right from inside. Once again, as you see here, absolutely no need for any kind of formwork. The whole panels are brought to every floor level through the tower crane in the site, and then you start installing the panels. If you don't have the right access, if you have these big columns obstructing, you can use robotics like the one which I've just shown here as a strategy for installing the facade. Now, this is one of our projects which we've done in Frankfurt, where we use these robotics, and I also fondly remember of a nice project in Dubai which we use robotics to complete the facade panel installation. So as you see here, the main difference between a stick curtain wall and a unitized curtain wall, these panels are experiencing a lot of interstory movements, and our unitized facade is able to take on those kind of movements. There's another video which shows clearly how the panel takes. So here is one bottom panel, and this is what we call as a stack joint, and you are having the top panel coming and fitting onto this, what we call as a Batman gasket. The facade compresses, the whole load of the facade compresses, and when there is building movements, it expands. So it is really a very interesting form factor when you have some buildings which is experiencing very high interstory movements and horizontal drifts. This panel is able to go up and down, and that's thanks to the stack joint gaskets, which is traditionally not possible on a stick curtain wall. That is why for high-rise buildings, they always recommend to go for unitized panels as the building experiences a lot of movements. Now let's see how the drainage works for these kind of panels. Maybe it's in the next, yeah. So let's see how the drainage happens. So remember the mullion drainage and the field drainage. In a unitized system, it's a combination of both. You have the mullion drainage, which is what's happening right now. You have water flowing down through the mullion, going through the transom, behaving like a field drainage, and it comes back to the mullion where we have a special slot through which the water is let out. So this is what happens across the mullions, and unlike the stick curtain wall system, here it is a combination of field drainage and mullion drainage. So that's very interesting to know the difference between the stick and the unitized system. The last type of facade curtain wall system which I want to talk about is double skin facades. Yesterday, one of the attendees was asking me about what is the payback period of using double skin facade, and is it really worthwhile using the double skin facade here? So before I answer that, let me first explain what a double skin facade is. Essentially, you have an outer layer, which is usually single layer of glass, which is heat strengthened or laminated safety glass. Then you have an inner layer, which is usually the double glazing, which provides the actual thermal protection, and it can be open for natural ventilation. And you have this intermediate space between the outer layer and the inner layer, which is creating this natural stack effect. And it can contain shading devices. It can have some interesting devices to protect any kind of solar direct impact into your internal layer. The vents also can be incorporated on your outer layer. So if you want to have a passive system, it can be kept all the time, or it can be mechanically or automated with your BMU system, your building management system, to make it active. And whenever there's a nice wind, you can always open it based on the climatic conditions. So what is the benefit of having a double skin facade? Number one, because of this natural stack effect, you get an amazing thermal performance, much higher than what you would conventionally get in normal buildings. The second benefit which you have is extremely good acoustic performance. So when we did some research in a local context, we realized that, of course, there is a cost impact because you're adding a whole new layer on the facade. And there is a cost impact because you're losing some amount of space. So we have done some studies internally to understand what would be the impact, and we have come to the conclusion that whatever amount you pay for this kind of additional layer, the payback time is usually 3.5 years. So within 3.5 years, you get your money back in terms of the air conditioning bills which you pay, and also you get really good rating for people inside the building because they're able to have a very pleasant stay because of the lack of noise, especially in densely populated zones and cities. So that's another approach which is also possible. It needs a very adventurous client and a very future-thinking architect to sell this, but definitely the technology works in our region, and definitely the payback is very attractive. So let's see some of the special curtain wall systems which are available in the market. So this is the double skin facade image which I just shown earlier. As you see here, this is the space which you essentially lose, but of course this place is accessible. People can use the space, but the double skin facade is one of the images from our projects where we realize a very good payback, especially in terms of our weather conditions. And there, I don't know if you're able to see it, but you can notice the ventilation, active ventilation system, which is connected to your BMU. So the other kind of special system which we have is the slim minimal stick curtain wall system. So when I mentioned earlier about 52 mm, we have today as low as 38 mm. This means that your shop fronts and especially in your retail area, architect want to have more glass and less visible aluminum. This is a great opportunity to use such systems in that scenarios. And even in residential villas where you want to have very sleek lines, our 38 mm curtain wall is a very good option to use. Our curtain walling system can also take special adaptations like sun shading. So you're able to add certain components on the external facade to help negate any kind of direct solar incidents onto your glass. And these are louvers which we produce, and we are able to fix it in different ways without the need of having secondary framing. You can directly fix it onto a glazing system. These are examples of certain projects which we have done in Dubai. This is a Mashreq Bank headquarters where it was designed by SOM from New York, and they wanted to have this really playful external shading device, which are 500 mm deep, and these are super heavy, and we designed the entire louvers and also how the loads are transferred through the facade, through the structure. Remember, the facade is a non-load bearing wall, so when you have such heavy louvers, it needs a lot of design and engineering and thought process going behind it, how we transfer the loads from outside to inside. It's another project in India, in Pune, where again we had a 500 mm vertical fin, and these fins are again quite heavy, and we are directly transferring these loads onto the slab through our unitized system without having any negative impact on air and water tightness. Another interesting way of expanding your facade design is by using fabric shading. So we collaborate with a company called Serge Ferrari, which manufactures this tensile fabric, and these people are able to give you a nice, interesting fabric which gives you absolute transparency from inside and 100% privacy from outside. So people outside can't see inside, and people inside can see completely what's happening outside. And you can add lighting to this, you can add your branding to this. And what's important is that you don't have any secondary frame required to host such fabric. You can directly incorporate it onto the curtain walling system through the special fixing bracket which we have. And this helps you to play around not only with new projects but also retrofit projects. If you want to rework on a facade, I think these are great ways to improve your facade shading. I mentioned earlier that we can use the sun in a positive way, and this is a good example of how to do that. Here's a project in Sudan where we did the entire facade, which is on your southwest elevation, is being glazed with solar panels. And today we have the technology to accommodate any kind of solar panels, may it be monocrystalline, amorphous silicon, or even the latest CIGS panels. We're able to accommodate all these panels onto a facade. And today your facade can be an opportunity to generate energy and not just a decorative element. So we have done a lot of studies, a lot of homework on several projects in the region where we have potentially have suggested the use of having such solar panels, and the payback time are usually between 8 to 10 years, but it is an investment for the future. So this is something which is something really useful thought for architects to see how they can better use the facade. We have some new interesting adaptations, and this is a project where the architect wanted to have wooden finish everywhere to really have that warm feeling in the building. So our curtain wall system can be added on to a wooden structure. So this is an example of what we call as an add-on steel, add-on wooden construction. So you have wooden structural mullions, and our curtain walling system just clamps onto these wood features. This is an interesting way to have an adaptation onto your facade as well. Nowadays, entrances and retail areas have super high podiums. We're talking about 12 meters to 15 meters freestanding. And in these scenarios, we use what we call as an add-on steel construction. So we have steel, which is acting as your primary structural mullion, and our aluminum mullions and transoms are simply clamped and fixed to the steel. So essentially, you have glass, which is held firmly by our aluminum add-on, and then the steel behaves like a structural component. We have new types of capping now. We have flat capping, which is very interesting for architects if they don't want to see that bulky extension. So this is also possible. And we have what we call as the facade for high thermal performances. So if you have any project which is aiming for LEED rating and so on, so we have facade which can get up Q values up to 0.9, which we talked yesterday, and these are all certified and approved by international green building authorities. I want to talk to you a little bit about our sister company, Vicona, which does some very interesting facade projects, facade elements. So whilst Technal does your standard mullions and transom, our sister company does some crazy shapes which are available as standard options. So I thought it's been a nice opportunity to show you some of the new shapes which we have. This is a very interesting shape, the Trita, which is really slim lines. You know, you really have very limited mullion visible from inside, and we also have some curvy transoms, so really giving the freedom for the architect to kind of play with the facade, not just having the boring rectangular lines. So Vicona, which is the German sister company of ours, provides this kind of solutions as well. And one thing which really I'm super excited about is the LED integrated curtain wall system, which is quite sweet because this is having special cover caps where you can directly incorporate LED lights, and this creates a very unique effect and impact on your building, because this is something which really attracts people inside your building. So you can create an aspect and a building with aspirations, with colors, and directly which is onto the facade, and it is completely hidden by a nice polycarbonate material, so that even if water hits, there is no problem. Conventional people, what they do is they go and they stick LED lights on the glazing, and it's always exposed to environmental conditions, but here it is completely concealed and well hidden, and you have this really beautiful impact which you can create on your facade. Okay, to summarize the types of curtain walling systems, so we saw the standard off-the-shelf system, we saw the stick curtain wall system, we saw the horizontal line, the vertical line, we saw the SSG or toggle, the semi-structural glazing system, we saw the semi-unitized glazing system, and we saw the special toggle system with the gasket. These are all off-the-shelf, which means it is fully tested by Technal, and you can blindly use them without having the need to retest them, because all of these systems have gone through tremendous amount of testing for all the functional parameters we saw yesterday. Then we have project modified systems, which is basically systems which are adapted from your existing system, but you're making some small changes. And these kind of systems often require some testing. So usually these are tested through a visual mock, through a performance mock-up test like we saw yesterday, or through site testing. And then we have special bespoke system for really complex structures, complex buildings, totally non-standard configuration like we saw the twisted building. These kind of projects need specific design, specific panels design, and our team are completely capable to do the engineering and design and development for such complex projects. And usually you require a full range of specific testing when you're developing completely bespoke. So that's a complete wrap about we talked about the stick curtain wall system and the unitized curtain wall system. And my last concluding element is the skylight. Skylight is a very important form factor which we have to understand, because skylight helps you to have direct contact with the outdoors. It admits a lot of natural light, especially in shopping malls. Emergency access needs to be considered when you're designing a skylight. It really enhances the interior appearance and is a great opportunity to when you use the right skylight, you can also save energy. So on the right hand side, you see an image of a wonderful project done by our colleagues in Southeast Asia. This is the Manila Bay Resort, and I've been told this is one of the world's largest skylight system, and they have made a man-made beach inside a building. And you might wonder why, because it rains so much in Philippines that people don't enjoy the beach so much. So they developed an indoor beach, and they needed to have the natural light to gush in, hence they used a Technal skylight. So what are the considerations we need to pay into attention? Like the facade, it needs to be air and watertight. It needs to have an additional feature, which is the drainage and gutter design. It's very important. It needs to give you visual comfort. It has to have safety, like the smoke vents and all the access points in the event of a fire, and accessibility, because we need to clean and maintain this facade, so we need to keep that also into consideration. So like the curtain wall, where we have mullions and transoms, we have here purlins and rafters. So your purlins are really running across, taking on majority of the loads, and your transoms are behaving, your rafters are behaving as guides for the glass to be held in place. So you have to consider two things. One is the slope drainage for the water to drain out. You also need to consider laminated glass as a mandatory for basic use. And if it's accessible, if it's a walkable surface, then you have to use double laminated glass. And smoke vents need to be used as per the local regulations. And we as Technal, we offer you all the guidance and all the systems required for this kind of smoke vents as well. And you also have bespoke designs on skylight. So you have the kind of a fishbone structure, which is possible. You have, this is an example of one of our projects we did in Bahrain, where you have really wide spans. You also have triangular glass spans. So you have a lot of bespoke design possibilities. In Riyadh Metro, we had used our skylight system as a complete cover for the metro stations, for the underground metro stations. And here, as you notice, we're using a mix of glass and cladding to get that little amount of light to come inside. Here's an example of a very famous museum where you have extended skylight. You have vertically moving skylights with horizontal glass features on the top as well. So what we did here, and in all these designs which are shown here, we use what we call as the add-on system. So steel behaves like your primary structural element, and the aluminum system sits on top of it. But what's important to know, these are interbracing systems. So your mullions and rafters go within each other, so you get complete clean lines when your panels are intersecting. And of course, these are all drainable systems, and we are always looking at the drainage strategy when we're designing such bespoke solutions. So in conclusion, I just want to recap our discussion which we had today. The first and foremost thing, remember the facade skin, the human body. I think it's very important to reflect how important the skin is. The facade is also important for the building. Remember, the building skin has a great opportunity to promote cross-cultural perspectives. We talked about the fixing arrangements. It's absolutely critical that we pay attention to this, because you have several local players in the market, but they do not pay attention to these kind of movements, expansions and contractions. This is a very important feature about the fixed anchoring and the loose anchoring. Remember, the best stick curtain wall for a region, it is the Technal toggle system with gasket, simply because very, very easy to maintain and clean, and you don't have any silicone on the external surface. Therefore, it is great for our region, especially so dusty and with all these sandstorms. Remember the unitized facade system. So irrespective of high-rise or mid-rise, case, if you want to complete your project fast, I think Unitized is the way to go. And also no access required from external, and opportunity to use robotics as well. And Unitized facade curtain wall system also helps you whenever you have very high interstory movements and building movements. And when you have some complex geometries, again, Unitized system plays a very good feature and very good way to use the facade. And last but not the least, we talked about skylight systems. It's very important when you have such bespoke elements. Technal can assist you in developing the right primary structure, and then the facade and the skylight can really take the shape of whatever you want to design on a building. So we have the opportunity to make even bespoke designs today. Right, so that brings end to my presentation, and thank you for being patient and being with me on this presentation. I now invite Badr back on the stage, on the virtual stage.
Thank you, Mr. Irvin, for your session. Again, today's session was in regards to the fundamentals of curtain walls or curtain wall facades. We've received a couple of questions, but I don't know if you want to do them first or the poll.
So I think we'll do the poll quickly. I think it'll be fun to finish the poll, and then we can take on the questions immediately.
Of course. So just to explain for our audience how the poll works, Mr. Irvine is going to present a couple of questions on the screen, and then I will allow you guys to participate in selecting one of the answers, and then we would present the correct answers towards the end. All right. Are you guys ready?
Okay, so let's do this.
All right, cool.
So let's open up the first set of questions. So we have the first question, which is, what are the types of curtain wall systems available today? Stick curtain wall system, unitized curtain wall systems, skylight systems, and all of the above. So that's question one. Is the poll already out? Have you started the poll, Badr?
Yeah.
Okay, there I see the poll. Perfect, excellent. The second question is, what is the slimmest curtain wall system width available in Technal? Is it 38 mm? Is it 42 mm? Is it 52 mm? Or is it D90 mm? And that's your second question. You are free to vote now. You will find a poll at the bottom of your screen. I believe you can see that. So feel free to start voting. You're able to vote now.
So you guys locate the poll right next to the participants logo. There you go. I see some people have started voting. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so the third question is, for protection against dust, which curtain wall is the most suitable? Is it A, the toggle or semi-structural glazed curtain wall? Is it semi-unitized structurally glazed curtain wall? Or is it the new Technal toggle system with the EPDM gasket? Or is it option B and C? And the fourth question is, when do we use unitized systems? Is it only for high-rise buildings, or is it for mid-rise buildings where facade work needs to be completed fast? Is it only for buildings which encounter high interstory movements, or is it all of the above? And the fifth question, the Technal brand, is it originally from France, Germany, UAE, or KSA? I hope this one everybody gets. Okay, so these are the 5 questions, which is now on poll right now. Okay. So maybe we keep it open for another couple of minutes. Yes. We see that more than 50% of people have voted. So let's give it another 1 minute or so. Again, for the ones that haven't located the polls yet, it's right next to the participants icon. You can just click on that and a window would pop with all of the questions so that you can pick the right answer.
So Bada, I think we have more than 80% completed. Would you like to end the poll? Or do you want to give it another 30 seconds?
Let's just give it another 30 minutes for everyone to wrap up.
Okay, super.
Yeah. Okay, I believe that is a wrap for us.
Okay. All right, so let's look at the answers. So the first question, what are the types of curtain wall systems? And the correct answer, yes, it's all of the above, and I'm super happy. 93% I've got them correct. So yeah, well done. That's fantastic. The second question, what is the slimmest curtain wall system width available with Technal? The right answer is 38 mm. And we've got 67% of them got that correct. So fantastic, kudos, good job. The third question, for protection against dust, which curtain wall system is the most suitable? And this is a little tricky question, but yeah, both B and C is actually quite an appropriate answer, because both with semi-unitized and the toggle system, you can get very good clean surfaces. So very good audience, because they've been really paying attention today in the session. That's really great. So good answer. So, and the fourth one, when do we use unitized system? Is it only for high-rise buildings? Is it for mid-rise? Is it for all of the above? And the answer is correct. All of the above is the right answer, and 71% have got it correct. And the last, my favorite question, where is Technal originating from? And I'm really happy there's a big upgrade from yesterday. So 89% of them have got the right answer. That is France. So fantastic. Well done, all of you. That's really amazing that you've stayed all this while and you're paying a lot of attention to the presentation. What we need from you is really to note this survey link, and I request Badr to put this link on the chat box. Please go ahead and give us your feedback for today's session. It's really important for us to help improve content for you, and also this will help you to give us your names and contact details for us to issue the certificate of attendance for today's session. So please go ahead and make note of this link, and I think it is flashing now on the chat box as well.
Yeah,
so
I've copied it for everyone, for everyone's reference. This is, as Mr. Irvine have said, it will help you guys get the certification of attendance. هذه in Arabic, just for the ones that haven't got it. هذه راح تساعدكم إنه تأخذوا شهادة الحضور بإذن الله. يعني تعطونهم معلوماتكم وأيضا هم يعطونكم شهادة الحضور. All right. Mr. Irvin, do you want to move on to the questions?
Yes, absolutely. I'm putting on the screen the contact details of my colleague Khalid and me. So if you don't have time for many questions today, feel free to contact us as well. So yeah, I leave the floor to you, Badr.
Of course. So the first questions that we got is, sometimes the holes which are meant for the draining in between the mullions and the GCC companies are blocked with dust, and with time, how do we prevent that, especially during the rain is not quite a lot? I don't know if
yeah, so it's a very valid question, and if you remember, that's why we have two types of drainages. You have the field drainage, and then you have the mullion drainage. In the mullion drainage, we're using a lot of components every 6-7 meters, and that is really the pain point for many fabricators, and also for long-term use in our region, especially a lot of dust starts to accumulate there. And that's the reason why we are reducing the amount of valves and components on the facade by adapting the field drainage. So field drainage is really the go-to option for, especially for our region in the Middle East.
Perfect. And another question, which is related to the draining system, is that do we need to poke holes through the cover cap?
Yeah, and this is something which you don't have to worry about at all when we are working with Technal, because we have a very detailed fabrication catalog and a very detailed punching strategy. So all of our metal builders have to follow the exact specific recommendation for the drainage holes and the weep holes, as they call it, for windows and doors. And this is a must. It cannot be compromised. And this is where we always recommend to use authorized Technal fabricators on projects, because we are constantly auditing and monitoring their fabrication. So when you work with the authorized fabricators with the original Technal system, you have an absolute peace of mind when it comes to drainage.
Perfect. And another question is that what would be the biggest piece of glass that Technal would be able to locate or work with in terms of curtain walls?
This must be an architect, because they're always pushing the barrier. Well, yeah. I'm glad to say that our biggest glass we've done is a 3 meter by 6 meter, which is one single pane of glass in the region and locally produced. So this is very important. Look, you can get big glasses from Europe and from China, for example, but they are not cost effective. And if any damages happen, you have to take it back. And there's a lot of pain points attached to it. But the locally available glass, we've done 3 meter by 6 meter on a horizontal facade with a nice arch on it, on a villa. Yeah, so it's definitely possible. Local glass, 3 meter by 6 meter.
That's perfect. And that actually carries me to another question from the same person. Is Technal, or throughout your presentation, you haven't really talked about private villas or residential units. Does Technal really work on such a scale?
Absolutely, yes. We work from villas right up to high-rise buildings. The topic of facade is very oriented towards high-rise buildings and commercial buildings, hence the flavor of discussion on commercial buildings. But tomorrow you will hear from my colleague Khalid. We're going to talk a lot about innovations on sliding doors, on windows, and a lot of aspect covering villas. So tomorrow will be a very interesting session, and I invite the gentlemen to join us tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be a lot about new technologies for villas and private houses and so on.
Inshallah. And then in relation to the double skin facade,
yeah.
That person is asking, could it be, what is the minimum requirement space for that system to actually function or operate well? And could it be done within a 200 millimeters between the external facade and the internal IGU skin?
No, 200 mm definitely not possible. For it to function well, we're talking anywhere between 750 mm to about 1 meter and above. So to get that stack effect, we really need to have that kind of spacing. We do have some new interesting technologies, what we call as the highly insulated CCF, we call it closed cavity facade, from our sister brand Vicona, which is basically a system which incorporates this natural stack effect. Maybe if the gentleman reaches out to us, we can talk to him privately about how our sister company can advise on closed cavity facade with much lesser dimensions and achieving the same performances of the double skin facade.
Perfect. Another question is that in relation to the fabric that you've presented that could be used on the facade, is one of the requirements of those of that fabric to be used in the GCC region is for that element or fabric to be non-combustible.
Yes. Yes. So Not to talk on behalf of Search Ferrari, but with my personal knowledge, I know that Search Ferrari manufactures fire retardant cloth. The only challenge with the fire retardant cloth is that it comes with less color options per se. But apart from that, yes, Search Ferrari definitely manufactures fire retardant cloth as well. So if you want to reach out to them, just ping me a mail and I would be happy to connect them to you guys.
Perfect. I believe that's a fair share of questions for today.
Fantastic.
But one last question in regards to the certification, because
yes.
I've had a lot of people asking the same, or in regards to that. They are saying that the survey is telling them, for the ones that have attended yesterday, that they've completed the survey.
Yes.
So I don't know how would it be able to keep track of the
right. So we had 133 survey filled just yesterday, which was fantastic. So thank you everybody for taking your time to do it. Just to manage the logistics, what we intend to do is to complete the entire Façade week. So then we pull out an Excel sheet. We know how many people have attended all the sessions. So it's much easier for us to issue the certificates once the Façade week is over. And hopefully by end of the month, it should be ready, because it's fairly a large amount of people shown interest. So please bear with us. We'll figure out a way to send these certificates across to you. But yeah, please fill in that survey. And I'm going to flash that link again. Of course, the link is there in the chat. Please fill it. And once the Façade week is over, we'll compile all the data together. We'll massage it a little bit. And then we know how much to issue certificates. It's quite a large number, but definitely we'll have it sent to you, God willing, by end of the month.
Inshallah. Well, that concludes our session for today. Thank you, Mr. Arvind. And for our attendees, please make sure to join us tomorrow, inshallah.
Yes.
At the same time, Tamaniya, with Mr. Khalid Tanidi, to talk about another topic or another product from Technal.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about the future trends. So I think it'll be a very interesting session. And thank you, everybody, for being such a patient audience. You've been so kind. Thank you, Bada, for hosting us. It was a pleasure to be with you. And yeah, once again, thank you, audience. Fantastic. Have a good evening and see you all tomorrow, God willing.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.